Welcome to the deep dive. If you're trying to get a handle on how government processes actually work, well, you're in the right place.
hmm
Today, we're looking at something pretty significant, the shift in Philippine government procurement. We're moving away from the old law, RA
The
9184,
one from 2003, yeah.
exactly, and towards the new one, RA 12009, the new Government Procurement Act.
Right.
So our goal here is to really unpack why this big change happened. We're diving into the source materials to see what wasn't working.
Basically why the old system needed replacing. It's about trying to get things faster, clearer, more, digital.
Let's start there. RA 9184 from
Mm.
2003. The materials suggest it was pretty outdated.
Yeah, definitely. Think about it, 2003. Technology has moved mountains since then.
Hmm?
That law was heavily built on, well, paper, manual processes.
Paperwork, always a bottleneck.
Exactly. And that
Mm.
manual stuff, it just couldn't keep pace. Processing documents alone could add weeks, maybe even months, to getting a project off the ground.
Okay, so that leads into this idea of cumbersome bureaucracy that came up in the sources. It sounds like it was more than just slow. It had, like, real consequences.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just an inconvenience. The materials point to project delays becoming almost normal.
Really?
Yeah, and local government units, the LGUs, they especially struggled. Problems dispersing their budgets effectively.
And I read something quite startling that some government agencies actually kind of avoided procurement if they could, just because it was so complex.
That's right. They found workarounds or just didn't initiate projects because the procurement process itself was such a hurdle. That level of avoidance really tells you something, doesn't it?
It really does. It highlights how that rigidity became a barrier.
And that inflexibility.
Yeah.
It became a major issue during crises. Think about the COVID-19 pandemic or, major typhoons hitting the country.
Right. You need to move fast then.
Precisely. But the old law, RA 9184, it just wasn't built for that kind of rapid adaptive response. It hampered getting essential supplies or services quickly in emergencies.
Okay, so speed and flexibility were issues. What about trust? The sources mentioned transparency problems too.
Yeah, that's another big one. RA 9184 aimed for transparency. That was the goal.
Right.
But in practice, loopholes and, honestly, pretty weak monitoring meant things like corruption and bid rigging could still happen. The mechanisms weren't strong enough.
And was it easy for, say, an average citizen to find out what was being procured?
Not really. Access to procurement data for the public was quite limited. So even if information was technically public, finding it and understanding it was tough.
Which makes genuine oversight difficult.
Exactly. And that connects directly to the next point, the big push for digitalization.
Makes sense. Moving things online.
Yeah, the materials we looked at really stressed this. RA9184 just didn't have the framework for things like proper e-bidding, real-time monitoring of the process, or even simple online supplier registration.
All things we kind of expect now.
Totally. Digital systems make things much more visible, trackable, hopefully cleaner.
The sources also brought up aligning with global standards and, interestingly, sustainability. Why was that part of the push?
Well, government procurement doesn't happen in a vacuum, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are international standards, best practices,
Right.
the World Bank, Asian Development Bank.
Okay.
Aligning with those can actually make processes smoother, maybe attract more international bidders sometimes. And the sustainability piece, RA 9184, basically had nothing on green procurement.
So no way to prioritize environmentally friendly options.
Not formally, no. It was a missed opportunity for the government to use its huge purchasing power to, push for greener practices.
Got it. And it wasn't just the rules themselves, but who was running the system. Professionalization came up.
Yes, this is key. Under the old law, procurement was often handled by people who weren't specialists. It's complex stuff.
You'd think you'd want experts handling multi-million peso deals.
You would. But RA 9184 didn't strongly support dedicated training or certification for procurement officers. That lack of professionalization could lead to, well, inconsistencies and maybe costly errors.
Right. Protecting public funds is crucial there.
Absolutely. And one final point from the materials was about who could actually participate. RA 9184, maybe unintentionally, tended to favor bigger established companies.
How so?
Often through really technical requirements or complex bidding procedures that smaller businesses just couldn't navigate.
So micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, were often left out.
Yeah. Many local businesses found it hard to compete. The system wasn't really set up to encourage their participation.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. The move to RA 12009 seems driven by a whole list of things. outdated manual processes causing delays and bureaucracy,
Well, real lack of flexibility, especially for emergencies.
transparency gaps, and concerns about corruption.
The absolute need for digitalization, for e-bidding and tracking.
Wanting to align better with global standards
Yeah.
and bring in sustainability.
Definitely needing a more professional, trained procurement workforce.
And finally, making it easier for smaller local businesses, MSMEs, to actually participate.
Exactly. It's aiming for a system that's fundamentally faster, much more transparent, uses modern tech, is more inclusive, can handle shocks better, and fits better with, global best practices.
That's the goal of the new Government Procurement Act, RA 12009.
That's the plan.
So it leaves us with a final thought, really. Considering all these intended changes, how might this new act actually impact government efficiency day to day, and maybe more importantly, public trust down the line? Something to watch.
Definitely something to watch.
Thanks for exploring this with us today on The Deep Dive.